Pizza time.
Italy has a very vocal fan base in the Enlisted community as long as the game has been out, and ever since I released my British tech tree video, I've been getting plenty of requests to write this one next. As Italy currently exists in the game, we can find Italian soldiers and equipment within the Axis tech tree, and while it's mostly German, the Italians have enough gear for a full tech tree from BR1 all the way to BR5. In this video, we will be discussing all of the BRs from BR1 all the way to BR5, starting with rifles and snipers, then SMGs, shotguns, and assault rifles, simplified to assaulter weapons, machine guns, anti-tank and utility equipment, tanks, and finally, planes. Like the British tech tree video, I'm going to be making a couple of disclaimers here. Since the game does contain prototype weapons in the tech trees already, I will be suggesting prototype weapons here if there isn't a great option that was mass-produced and used in service, or if it allows for more gameplay variety and choice. Secondly, this tech tree aligns with how the game is currently balanced. If I was to include all the various balance changes I think would help the game, these videos would be infinitely long. If a weapon from the current Axis tree is in this tech tree, there's an appropriate substitute in what will become the German tree that currently exists in the game. Finally, the Italian tree would be placed within the same matchmaker as the Germany tree in most cases, which both exist in the current Axis tree. Both nations have the potential of having campaigns specific to them in the future. Without further ado, let's get started. The reserve rifle for Italy at BR1 is the OG Carcano M1891. Long, unwieldy, and underwhelming for its length due to the 6.5mm cartridge, the Carcano is like many reserve bolt-action rifles, lackluster. However, immediately after the Carcano M1891 is a carbine, the Carcano Mod 91-28TS. Unlike the M1891, this rifle trades lower damage for a better handling and rate of fire, but maintains the same poor reload speed. The second carbine at BR1 is the Carcano Mod 38, chambered in 6.5mm. This weapon is identical to the Mod 38 7.35mm currently in game, but of course the bullet is slightly smaller. It expects slightly better stats than the M91 28TS. Italy is also unique in that it gets a tech tree carbine at BR1, the Beretta M1918. Yes, this is very much the gun in the current Germany tree as a BR2 SMG, but these weapons were built primarily with a semi-automatic firing mode, not fully automatic. Pistol caliber, 25-round magazine, and it keeps the bayonet. A great close-range alternative option for your riflemen. BR1 also contains two sniper rifles. The first is the Carcano M1891, fitted with the domestic La Filotecnica scope. With an optical 5.5x zoom, this rifle picks off targets at range, but struggles with close engagements. Since the scope is mounted directly over the magazine, this rifle has a trapdoor built into the bottom of the magazine, in a similar fashion to loading a French RSC rifle. The second sniper rifle at BR1 for the Italians is the Carcano Mod 38 Salmoiraghi in 7.35mm. This rifle is lighter, handier, and has a lower zoom scope, allowing for far more aggressive play. An easy premium rifle at BR1 is the M1870-87-15, or simply known as the Vetterli Carcano. The Vetterli is originally a Swiss rifle, and this rifle underwent a couple of modernizations from the original 1870 design. These rifles saw mostly training used by the Italians in World War II. Battle Rating 2's first unlock is the Carcano Mod 38 in 7.35mm. It has the same stats as the Mod 38 in 6.5mm at BR1 with higher damage. If you want something heavy hitting though, the Carcano Mod 41 is a return to form of the long-barreled variety. In the current tree, the M41 is the reserve rifle for the Italians, but I wanted to give them a domestic long rifle at BR2. The next rifle will shock no one, the Mannlicher M95 AOI. The AOI is an abbreviation for Africana Orientale Italiana, Italy's name for all of its controlled territory in East Africa. This is the Mannlicher M1895 in-game, except it also receives a unique bayonet that the Italians use for the weapon. For a semi-automatic rifle, Italy gets the Armaguerra, but chambered in 7.35mm. Perhaps the 6.5mm version can also be moved over, but there at least needs to be the 7.35mm version, which deals 15.3 damage per shot. Like the Mannlicher, this rifle also receives a bayonet. In other words, Italy ends up getting something similar to the Fedorov M1912 that trades an extra bullet for a slower reload speed. The sniper rifle that Italy receives at BR2 is the Carcano M41 Salmoiraghi. These rifles were supposedly tested in limited numbers by the Italians in the Eastern Front in 1942, and in-game would be similar to the Mod 38 with the same scope at BR1, but with more firepower. As for a BR2 Premium, we have a plethora of options. The first one that I would consider is the Scotti Mod 31. It's one of the many Alfredo Scotti semi-automatic rifles and feeds from a 6-round Carcano stripper clip. This would have similar stats to the Japanese type Otsu rifle. I would also consider the Genovese Rivelli M1908, which was made in limited numbers and saw service in World War I. There was a couple of versions of this weapon, and about 150 were made in total. There's also the 5-round Freddy Vetterli conversion from 1900, the Breda CR5. It's hard to run out of options here. Now we start BR3 with a bit of a predicament because I'm going to list the ZK391 here. This is a Czech rifle tested by the Italian military during World War II, which fires 7.92 by 57mm Mauser rounds from a 10-round non-detachable magazines. Stats-wise, this weapon would be very similar to the American Johnson rifle. Ideally, the rifle for the tech tree would have been the domestic Pavesi SVT copy or Pavesi Mod 42, but it's already a gold order weapon. Perhaps they can be model swapped with identical stats? For a sniper rifle, the Mannlicher M95 AOY C. Reichert is an Italian Mannlicher that also contains an Austrian C. Reichert scope. This weapon is similar to the British Lee Enfield sniper, but has a faster rate of fire to make up for the fewer rounds, in addition to be able to maintain ADS between shots. Italy also receives 2 grenade launcher rifles. The first is the Carcano M9128TS Contromboncino 1928. A bit of a mouthful. It's an M9128TS carbine with a side-mounted grenade launcher from 1928 that supposedly saw limited use in World War II. The other is the Carcano M9128TS Contromboncino 1943. This is the same rifle with essentially a copy of the German Scheisbecker and as such has very similar performance. For a premium rifle, both the Walther G41 and Garand were used by Italian partisans in limited numbers during the war, so there is potential for such weapons to exist in a partisan squad. I will likely refer to partisan weapons later on as well, since other premium or event options can be limited depending on the battle rating and item type. Now, BR4 for Italy is kind of weird. Our best options for BR4 Italian rifles aren't even your standard 10-round detachable box magazine semi-autos. The closest thing to this standard is potentially the Beretta Mod 37. It supposedly has a magazine capacity of 9 rounds and is reloaded with a special single stripper clip. Ralph Riccio's book on Italian weapons makes this claim, but I'm skeptical of the magazine size, the existence of such a special stripper clip, and even looking at the magazine size, 9 rounds seems plausible at best. Nonetheless, from my research, it seems like the best option here. If you really wanted, they could shoehorn the Breda PG Carcano here, which, again, is already a gold order rifle with 20 rounds of 6.5mm Carcano. However, I would opt to increase its damage to 14.5, ensuring 1 taps to vitality from range. For a carbine, look no further than the Terni MAF-SR, short for Morshetto Automatico Fanteria Senza Raffica. This weapon fires a 7.65 by 32mm intermediate cartridge from a detachable 25-round magazine as a semi-automatic rifle. It would be very comparable to the VG-15, but it deals 13.9 damage, meaning it 1-taps vitality at close range. The same cannot be said for the next rifle, which is the Che Rigatti M1903 Fanteria. This rifle is chambered in 6.5mm Carcano and only has a 6-round magazine, but fires in full auto at a blistering 900 or 990 upgraded rounds per minute. This makes the weapon act more like a shotgun than a rifle in practice, but nonetheless is a bit of a flavor pick at this battle rating. The Italian sniper rifle at this battle rating is the Pavesi Mod 42 Samurai, which combines the Pavesi Mod 42 that most of us know as the Pavesi SVT and adds a prismatic lens to the top. This pairs well with its high damage for effective mid to long range combat on a semi-automatic platform. Possible premiums at this battle rating are either a captured SVT-40 or captured Gewehr 43, as either were used by the Italian partisans yet again. We've made it to BR5 and expect weapons that are both familiar and unfamiliar. Our first unlock at this battle rating is the Ricci M1898. Amerigo Che Rigatti wasn't the only inventor who was dabbling in fully automatic Carcano conversions at the time, and Colombo Ricci's rifle design was patented in 1895 and supposedly built in 1898, according to Get 'em Puppy of the Firearms Curiosa blog. Colombo Ricci is also more well known for an automatic revolver design from around 1910. We have this image of the weapon being tested, traced from what must have been a real image, which is similar to the Che Rigatti testing photos people are familiar with. I thought so too, but noticed the detachable magazine and long recoil mechanism, which differ from the Che Rigatti's gas-operated mechanism and non-detachable magazine. It's similar to the operation of the infamous French show-shot machine gun, though the bolt mass of a Carcano is much lighter. I would estimate the cyclic rate of this weapon to be between 500 and 700 rounds per minute, and I would assume the magazine capacity is 24 rounds of 6.5mm Carcano. This would make it a comparable weapon to the Japanese Type A automatic, though it trades a slightly higher damage for more recoil and of course the smaller magazine. Our second rifle is the Che Rigatti M1903 Navale, which is near identical to the M1903 Fanteria in BR4, except for a 24-round magazine. Like the Che Rigatti event weapon, this rifle fires an astonishing 900/990 rounds per minute, but instead reloads with a single, very large stripper clip. This rifle is the lowest damage option at BR5, matching the Japanese Type A automatic, and also having a relatively long reload compared to the detachable magazines of other options. But it combines a fantastic cyclic rate and low recoil with a large magazine. The last option is the Che Rigatti M1899 7.65mm. If this weapon looks familiar, it's because it's the same as the event weapon Che Rigatti rifle, but this weapon was actually designed for two different cartridges, 6.5 by 52mm Carcano for Italy, and 7.65 by 53mm Mauser for export. Firing a 210 grain bullet at somewhere north of 600 meters per second, the bullets hit hard and maintain some damage at a distance, but you will have to lead range shots more than your counterparts. Fortunately, the weapon can sport a bayonet, has a quick ADS speed, and of course has the incredible rate of fire of the Che Rigatti family. It also reloads with a massive 24-round stripper clip, like the M1903, meaning you can get a slow but reasonable reload speed. Unfortunately, this weapon has the highest recoil of any of Tech Tree select fire rifles, given the powerful cartridge and fast rate of fire on a lightweight and short-barreled rifle. And while we're on the topic, the event Che Rigatti should have its magazine reduced from 25 to 24, but reload with 4 sets of 6-round stripper clips instead of 5 sets of 5-round stripper clips. For a BR5 sniper rifle, we can use the Che Rigatti M1903 Naval mounted with the Amique scope. After all, the rifle is essentially a converted M1891 Carcano, and the mounting system wouldn't be affected in doing so. The optical zoom for the scope is a very high 7x, but the weapon can still be aimed down the iron sights and is controllable to fire at long range in bursts if prone. Finally, a premium BR5 automatic rifle could be the Che Rigatti M1899, but in 6.5mm Carcano. Essentially, this is the same gun as the event Che Rigatti rifle, chambered in 6.5mm, but reloads with the 24-round stripper clips. It has the faster ADS speed and bayonet of the 7.65mm rifle in the Tech Tree, but is also more controllable. The main downside is, of course, the lower muzzle velocity and the 13.9 damage. Like their rifles, the Italian assaulter weapons have noticeable quirks. The first weapon is the Beretta M38-42-20. Solid rate of fire and accuracy, but only 20 rounds in the magazine. The familiar Beretta M38A20 has moved over to this tech tree, but unfortunately needs a dispersion nerf to be more balanced at this battle rating. Otherwise, you still get great firepower in a limited capacity magazine. The first shotgun for Italy is the Beretta S3, an ornate over-under shotgun that functions similar to the Soviet TOS-B. Simple, reliable, and with a bit of sparkle. The last SMG unlocked at BR1 is the FNAB 43 Tipo 140. This is the current BR2 FNAB 43 in the Axis tech tree, with its ultra slow rate of fire and 40 round magazine. With its current stats, it fits a lot better at BR1. A potential premium for BR1 is the TZ45-20. Statistically, this weapon is very similar to the Beretta M38A20, but it trades a slightly longer reload for better dispersion stats. At BR2, we start off with the OVP 1918. You guys are already familiar with this weapon. It fires very fast but has a 25 round magazine, and is based off of the Villa Barossa pistol caliber machine gun. Second, the Verriera SMG was a partisan designed SMG with decent recoil and dispersion, but a slower rate of fire. Only a few of these weapons were ever made. The Beretta M38-42-40, on the other hand, was produced in large quantities and was used by some of the Italian army prior to armistice in September of 1943. As for an Italian shotgun at BR2, I chose the Cosmi shotgun. The Cosmi is a break-action, semi-automatic shotgun with a magazine in the stock, of which about 300 had been made by the time World War II began. It holds a total of 7 rounds, but takes quite a while to fully reload. Like the Beretta S3 at BR1, it's tough to say whether these weapons actually saw any combat in World War II, but it isn't totally implausible, and it's a fun way to showcase some of Italy's hunting shotguns that they were very famous for. The final SMG at BR2 is the FNAB 43 Tipo 2-20. This is the later model of the FNAB 43, which was constructed more crudely than the initial model. It is also the variant with a much faster 830 rounds per minute base, which is 950 rounds per minute upgraded. A potential premium at this battle rating is the Beretta M1918 Maida, which is the Beretta M1918 with dual triggers, allowing for fully automatic fire. This would essentially be the M1918 we have in game currently. BR3 only has 2 weapons to choose from. The first is the Albertini M43, another late war Italian SMG offering, but this one uniquely fires from MP40 magazines. Stat-wise, this weapon is extremely similar to the Czech ZK383 SMG in the German tech tree. The other offering is the Beretta M38A40. It fires relatively slow at BR3 and doesn't get much of a magazine boost to compensate, so I'm also giving it a small damage boost to help it compete. As for a premium, I would go for the TZ45-40. It already exists as a German premium squad, but there were a few variants of the weapon that only had aesthetic differences as far as we're aware. BR4 only gets a single SMG, the FNAB 43 Tipo 2-40. Great rate of fire, recoil, and dispersion make this a very handy SMG at this battle rating. As for a premium SMG at BR4, I'm going to have to rely on the partisan M1928A1 Thompson 50, which would essentially be identical to the M1928A1 Thompson 50 in the American tree. And finally, we arrive at BR5, and I'll admit, finding an SMG at this battle rating is very difficult. The best domestic design I could find is the Soso M1942 SMG. Kind of in a similar vein to the Cosmi shotgun, this SMG carries a very high capacity of ammunition within the stock, and uses a unique patented system to feed the rounds in an arc to the chamber. The only problem is, we don't know anything else about the weapon. People have speculated a magazine capacity of 94 bullets from 2 rows of 47 rounds, and we have no idea what the rate of fire is either. A potential alternative is the SIG MKMO. The problem with it is it was used by the Swiss Papal Guard, which technically isn't Italy, but is within Italy geographically. This one's a bit of a stretch, and there's essentially a 0% chance it was ever used in this capacity, but it's a bit of a compromise. A final boring option for an SMG is just to use a captured PPSH from the Eastern Front. They were used by partisans firing 7.62mm Tokarev ammunition and not 7.63mm Mauser. But enough about SMGs, let's also cover assault rifles, which Italy has plenty of options. Firstly, there's a few variants of the Scotty Naval beyond the current event weapon. I would add the version with anti-aircraft sights, a crescent moon buttstock, and either a 20 or 25 round magazine. And yes, the Scotty Naval event weapon has a 15 round magazine in game, but this is technically a 20 or 25 round magazine depending on the source. Gaijin just doesn't want to fix their mistake. In addition to the Scotty Naval, there's also the Terni MAF Mod 21 or Machete Automatico Fanteria. This weapon closely relates to the BR4 carbine chambered in 7.65 by 32mm, but this weapon uses rows of magazines on a moving tray like the Fiat Revelli machine gun. With 5 magazines holding 5 rounds each, the weapon carries 25 rounds and fires automatically. In addition, there's the Brescia MAF Mod 22, which is very similar to the Terni Mod 21 in its chambering, loading, and function of fire. All in all, another very interesting firearm. Depending on the information available, we could also consider the Roma MAF Mod 23 as an assault rifle. All of the MAF rifles were a part of Italy's desire in the early 1920s to have an SMG that fired an intermediate cartridge. The Roma MAF in particular fired a weaker loading of 6.5mm Carcano, firing a 6.4 gram bullet at 640 meters per second. With a 25 round detachable magazine but unknown rate of fire, there's potential for this weapon to be BR4 or BR5, depending on how fast it fires. Italy has a lot of machine gun options at BR2. First is the Fiat Mod 28. This weapon competed directly with the Breda Mod 30 prior to its adoption, and was trialed by the Italian military with 700 examples. The weapon fired at a very slow 400 to 450 rounds per minute, with 20 round magazines of 6.5mm. Next is the Breda Mod 30 chambered in 6.5mm that we're all familiar with. It's certainly better than nothing, but I'm also adding the Breda Mod 30 chambered in 7.35mm. It's virtually identical aside from dealing more damage, and would be folded with the original 6.5mm version. The final unlock is the Terni Mod 29, which is similar to the machine guns that came before it, but it has a much more favorable rate of fire at 770 rounds per minute. A potential premium MG at this BR is the Sistar MG. Like pretty much every other option here, it's a steampunk-looking machine gun loaded with a large proprietary stripper clip, and has similar stats to the Terni and the Tech Tree. There's also the elusive Brixia M5. Think of it as the Italian equivalent of the Madsen, but it ate too many plates of cacio e pepe. It's heavy, chambered in 7.92mm, and fires at a reasonable cyclic rate. The Brixia 930 is also an interesting option, which looks like a time-traveling FG-42. Unlike the paratrooper rifle, and like the other Brixia machine gun, the Brixia 930 is really heavy at 12 kilograms, meaning the sprint factor is only 45%, but it gets great recoil and dispersion to compensate. We see some noticeable upgrades for the Italian machine guns at BR3. The first of these is the Breda Mod 38 Fanteria, which is a version of their tank-mounted Breda Mod 38 machine gun, chambered in 8x59mm Breda with iron sights and a shoulder stock. This weapon is immensely heavy for what it is, giving it a terrible sprint multiplier, but the firepower is good with 24 rounds, a good rate of fire, and high damage. We also see 2 versions of the same machine gun in 2 chamberings again, the Scotty Isotte Fraschini in 6.5mm and in 8mm. The 6.5mm version has a 30 round magazine, and the 8mm version has a 20 round magazine. Both feed at 650 rounds per minute. As for a premium machine gun, there's a variant of the Fiat Revelli M1914 machine gun that was modified for infantry use. This weapon could use either 50 or 100 round trays and this version uses the 50 round tray. Moving on to BR4, we see the same variant of the Fiat Revelli, but with the 100 round tray. With a cyclic rate of 500 rounds per minute, it suffers from the low damage of the 6.5mm cartridge, but otherwise can maintain fire for a prolonged period of time. We also see a 40 round version of the 8mm Scotti Isotta Fraschini machine gun. Finally, we see a version of the Breda Safat machine gun in 7.7mm, modified for ground use with a 50 round belt. This is Italy's analog of the MG42 with a 1040 cyclic rate of fire. This particular version has a wooden buttstock. As for a premium at BR4, we're going with the Perino M1908. This is a belt-fed machine gun with 100 rounds of 6.5mm ammunition, but it is very bulky and uncomfortable to use. It has a monopod and can be shoulder-fired, but it has very poor mobility. And finally, we reach BR5, and there's only one machine gun here. The Breda Safat 100 is another infantry use variant of the Breda Safat aircraft machine gun, but this time with a metal stock and of course 100 rounds. It weighs less and therefore suffers less of a movement penalty than the previous version of this weapon, and it is of course very similar to the MG42-100 in the German tech tree. As for a premium weapon, I would opt for a captured MG34 or 42 with a loose 100 round belt. Both of these were used by Italian partisans in limited numbers. We start off the Italian anti-tank weapons with something Polish? The Fucile Controcaro 35P is the Polish WZ-35 anti-tank rifle, the same one that's in the German event squad. But this weapon was adopted in limited numbers by the Italian military after Poland was seized in 1939. Great velocity and penetration from a 4-round bolt-action anti-tank rifle. As for a motorcycle, the Moto Guzzi GT17 with a sidecar and Breda Model 30 is your unlockable of choice, with the Moto Guzzi Tralce being the premium motorcycle for Italy. The BR1 mortar for Italy is the 45mm Brixia Model 35, which functionally is very similar in-game to the Japanese Type 89 mortar. For premium anti-tank options at BR1, the Italians had anti-tank rifles developed by both Scotti and Breda. These weapons were merely prototypes and didn't see service, but it's interesting that Italy developed their own domestic anti-tank designs. BR2 only has 2 unlocks. The first is the 60mm Lancia Bombe, a prototype anti-tank launcher with 70mm of penetration. This is relatively low penetration for this battle rating, but it gets 10 projectiles instead of the standard 6 to compensate. As for an APC, Italy gets the Breda 626 medium truck, one of their most common trucks used in World War II. In terms of a premium APC option, the Camionetta Cingolate CVP-5 is essentially a copy of the British Universal Carrier, but based on the Italian L6-40 light tank chassis. The initial variant only mounted a single 8mm machine gun, but the later version featured a 13.2mm machine gun and an 8mm machine gun mounted on a pedestal at the back of the crew compartment. Only about 12 of these vehicles were ever manufactured. The Auto Protetto S37 armored truck could also be considered for this role. Moving on to BR3, we get the Lancia Fiamme Mod 35 as Italy's first flamethrower. It performs like any other BR3 flamethrower. Italy unfortunately doesn't get a unique anti-tank weapon moving forward, only receiving the German Panzerfaust 60. Italy also receives a mortar at BR3, the 63.5mm CEMSA L25.5. At BR4, Italy receives their second flamethrower, the Lancia Fiamme Mod 41. As for an anti-tank weapon, like BR3, Italy receives the Panzerfaust 100, same as the German tree. Both the Panzerfaust 60 and 100 were used by the RSI following Italian armistice. Finally, we reach BR5 for Italian anti-tank and utilities. The mortar at BR5 is the 81mm Martello da 81 Mod 35. The stats will be the same as the other 81mm mortars at BR5. Italy gets quite a few options at BR1, starting with the War Thunder Classic, the L3-33 CC. This tank head is armed with the 20mm Solothurn cannon, capable of 38mm of penetration with its APHE shells in 10-round magazines. Following the L3-33cc is 3 vehicles that are currently in the Germany tech tree: the AB41, the M14-41, and the 75-32 M41. The final tank I would add for Italy is the M1542, a direct upgrade to the M14-41. This tank has slightly better armor, engine power, and the long-barreled 47mm Canone 47-40. The premium tank at BR1 for Italy is the M14-41 4740. This was an experimental variant of the M14-41 with the 4740 cannon, as well as a coaxial 13.2mm Breda Mod 31 machine gun. Moving on to BR2, we see the AB43 armored car. This is similar to the AB41, but has the same long-barreled 47mm Canone 4740 as the M1542. Italy at BR2 also receives the 7534 M42, a direct upgrade to the 7532 M41 at BR1. The 75mm Canone 7534 on the M42 also gets access to a heat shell, providing better AP and HE characteristics than the APCBC Granata Perforante. In addition, since it's based on the M1542 hull, the 7534 M42 is faster than its BR1 counterpart. The third vehicle is the Celere Sahariano. This was an attempt by the Italians to copy the British cruiser tanks, such as the Crusader. In comparison to the Crusader, which is also a BR2 tank, the Celere Sahariano has a much weaker gun, but very impressive 50mm of sloped hull armor, with comparable speed. The P40-7532 is a prototype of the P2640 heavy tank. This particular prototype mounts the same 75mm Canone 7532 as the 7532 M41 at BR1. The hull armor is up to 45mm and the turret is up to 50mm. All in all, this tank is pretty solid when compared to its contemporaries of the same battle rating, except for its lack of a dedicated HE shell. We also see the 9053 M41M, the first of many Italian tanks to mount the 90mm Canone 9053. Unfortunately for the M41M, such a powerful gun at BR2 comes with numerous drawbacks. First, it only carries 8 APHE shells. That's it. Second, it only has 30mm of armor with a very open crew compartment. The ultimate glass cannon, the M41M, can eliminate any tank it faces, but has very limited capabilities. A possible premium at this battle rating is the P40-7518. This vehicle is ultimately quite similar to the P40-7532, but the 7518 gun gets both APHE and HE shells. The reload is slightly quicker, but the APHE shells have much lower penetration at 52mm compared to the 77mm of the 7532. Moving on to BR3, we start with the P2640. The production variant of the P40 prototypes at BR2, this tank is Italy's equivalent to the American M4 Sherman tanks or the Soviet T-34s. Mounting the 75mm Canone 7534, this gun has access to APHE, heat, and HE shells. It also has much more effective sloped hull armor. The 7534 cannon is pretty strong, but the other options at this battle rating sacrifice flexibility for more DACA in multiple flavors. The first of these is the 105-25 M42 Bassotto. Essentially the Italian equivalent of the German Sturmhaubitze, this direct upgrade to the 75-34 M42 carries up to 48 rounds of Effetto Pronto Mod 43 heat shells with up to 120mm of penetration. It also has a respectable 75mm of superstructure armor, giving it decent protection against BR2 tanks. We also see the 9053 Lancia 3RO. Unlike the M41M, this truck-mounted AA and AT cannon carries 30 rounds of assorted APHE and HE ammunition, while unfortunately being mounted on a slow truck. At least the gun can traverse a full 360 degrees. For premium tanks, there are a few German options which are appropriate for this battle rating, which were used in limited numbers by the RSI: the Panzer IIIN, the Panzer IV-G, and the Stug 3G. I thought about adding at least one of these to the tech tree, but I wanted to stick with domestic Italian designs only. The first BR4 tank for Italy is the 7546 M43. It's like the 7534 M42 at BR2, with a significant gun and armor upgrade. This time, the armor on the superstructure is up to 100mm thick, making it frontally quite resilient against BR3 tanks, and it gets the formidable 75mm Canon de 7546. This gun has comparable performance to the German 75mm Pak 40, and some sources even claim that the guns mounted on the M43 were modified to fire German ammunition. If this is true, the gun would get access to Italian APHE, but also Pak 40 APCR, giving the gun very impressive anti-tank capabilities. The next tank at BR4 is the Breda 501. Equipped with the 90mm Canon de 9053, this truck combines the gun with a very mobile platform. Unlike the Lancia at BR3, the gun only traverses 145 degrees to each side, but it can actually traverse terrain quite quickly, being more comparable to the German Puma. The third vehicle unlock is the 10525 M42T. If you enjoyed the Basotto at BR3, this is essentially the same gun mounted on the M43 chassis. Expect similar performance from the gun, but with even more protection. The premium tank for Italy at BR4 is the Breda 9053. It's similar to the Lancia 3RO at BR3, but with better mobility and a slightly improved reload speed. BR5 only gets one vehicle in the tech tree, the 14940 M43. The pinnacle of Italian self-propelled guns, the 149mm Canon de 14940 has really impressive anti-tank capabilities. Very much a Pokemon evolution of the M41M at BR2, the 14940 M43 carries only 6 shells of APHE, but is capable of penetrating pretty much any tank it can face with its massive APHE shells. As for a BR5 Premium, the best option is the 10235 Fiat 634N. The pinnacle of truck-mounted guns, this truck is only capable of 40 kilometers an hour, but the 29-pound HE shell it fires is capable of overpressuring almost any tank it runs into. It also has a very fast 4-second reload, meaning it can create very big problems for the enemy team if left alone. As a fun fact, these guns were also mounted on SPA 9000 trucks in World War I. These trucks could possibly be added as a BR3 or 4 Premium or event vehicles one day, depending on ammunition stores. A final vehicle worth mentioning, though I'm not really sure I would advocate for it to be used or added to the game, is the 194-32 M18. It's the captured French Saint-Chamond 194mm self-propelled gun from late World War I, and Italy had 2 of these in use as coastal defense guns. In Enlisted, these vehicles could be combined with ammunition carriers to shoot 85-kilogram cast iron shells that would have an armor-piercing effect, in addition to having as much HE filler as the SIG 15cm HE shell. However, the gun would have to be balanced with a reload speed between 30 and 60 seconds to work in the game. This is all speculation, but it's a potential option. All nations start with a biplane, and the Italians start with the CR-42. It only gets 2 12.7mm Breda Safat machine guns for armament, but they're very respectable machine guns for a starter plane. The next unlock is the BA-65 K-14L, Italy's first attack aircraft. It's relatively slow, but does have very solid offensive armament, as well as 400 kilo bombs. The next is the Re.2007 Story 1, which is being plucked from the Germany tree to be placed here instead. The final BR1 plane is the Re.2001 CB, with 2 12.7mm and 2 7.7mm Breda Safat machine guns, combined with a single 250 kilo bomb. This is a solid multi-role fighter for low battle ratings. The C200 Series 3 is your premium fighter option at BR1. Solid maneuverability with 2 12.7mm Breda Safat machine guns. Moving on to BR2 is the C202EC, currently in the German tech tree. There are claims that this plane is fake, but it seems to be a real experimental variant of the matchy C202, with 2 20mm MG 151-20s mounted underneath the wings. The first attack aircraft of BR-2 Italy is the FC-20 Bis, armed with a 37mm cannon, two 12.7mm Breda Safets, and carries two 160kg bombs. It's a relatively slow and cumbersome aircraft, but the variety of ordnance is hard to not admire. The Re.2002 Early is the multi-role fighter of this battle rating, offering small improvements in speed and maneuverability to the Re.2001 CB, in addition to two 100kg bombs to its suspended armament. Finally, Italy gets a German Ju-87 D3 Stuka. It's only armed with MG81 machine guns, but carries a 500kg JP500 bomb to compensate. The BR-2 premium plane for Italy is the Breda 88 P11, that is currently in the Germany tech tree. The first plane at BR-3 is a familiar one. The Fiat G55 currently in the German tech tree gets down-tiered from BR-4. It's comparable in strength to the American P-51 D5, except it trades better maneuverability for only two 100kg bombs. If you want something with a bit more direct firepower, the P-10A Series 2 is right up your alley. With a massive 102mm cannon that fires an APHE belt at 20 shots per minute, whatever you shoot at is going to feel it. Combined with some defensive 12.7mm machine guns, this big, slow, and heavy bomber that packs a wallop can be dangerous, but is somewhat easy to take down as well. As for a designated fighter, the C-205N2 is much like the C-202EC, but with more firepower and speed. Three 20mm MG151-20s and two 12.7mm machine guns with a Daimler-Benz DB605 engine, this plane is swift and intercepts with impunity. Folded with the C-205N2 is the C-205 Series 3, another fighter without suspended armament. This plane only has two 20mm guns, but gets a better top speed and maneuverability than the C-205N2. The premium plane at this battle rating is the G55S. With two 20mm MG151-20s and two 100kg bombs, this plane offers a direct alternative to the tech tree Fiat G55. Moving on to BR-4, we get the SM-91 Attacker aircraft. With six 20mm MG151s for offense, another in the turret for defense, and six 100kg bombs, this plane is an absolute menace. Its brother, the SM-92, is also at BR-4. It trades three of the MG151s for four 12.7mm Breda Safets, but carries two 500kg bombs instead of the anemic 100kg bombs. If you want a fighter instead, go with the G55 Series 1. Think of it as a straight upgrade to the Fiat G55, with three 20mm, two 12.7mm machine guns, and two 100kg bombs. Italy also gets a bomber at BR-4, the SM-79AS. With only a single offensive 12.7mm machine gun, it also has five 250kg bombs. Finally, as a premium plane for BR-4, the SM-93 dive bomber is an interesting vehicle, which changed the orientation of the pilot when it entered a dive to prevent blackouts. With good power and agility, armament, and three 250kg bombs, it's a very respectable option at BR-4. We've reached BR-5, and the first unlock is the Re.2005 Series 0. It has a high top speed, three 20mm and two 12.7mm machine guns, in addition to a 250kg bomb. This plane doesn't mess around, but it's also the tip of the iceberg. The SM-89 represents the attack aircraft pinnacle for the Italian tree. Twin 37mm cannons, offensive and defensive 12.7mm machine guns, and four 250kg bombs. It's like the BR-5 bombers of other trees, but it trades some payload for not one, but two anti-tank guns. Another fighter at BR-5 is the G56. Mounted with the massive DB603 engine, this plane exceeds 700 km per hour top speeds, in addition to three 20mm MG151s and two 100kg bombs. Now, I know what you're thinking, surely the final plane in the tree is a jet fighter, right? Well, here's the thing. There are a couple of prototype planes that were supposedly mostly completed, or have murky levels of legitimacy, or are variants of existing planes with minor modifications. That being said, I'm going to list off a few options here, and people can decide for themselves what makes the most sense to be added. I'll first discuss the Re.2005R, a project to modify the Re.2005 to include a Fiat A20 engine behind the cockpit to supplement the DB605 engine. With both engines feeding a compressor, the plane could generate additional thrust, providing jet aircraft performance. A prototype was supposedly being constructed, but sources aren't reliable. Another plane that was supposedly almost completed was the Caproni CA-183 BIS. A similar design and function, the CA-183 BIS would have used the Fiat A30 as its secondary power plant. With a top speed of 740 km an hour, a 30mm and 420mm cannons, this plane would have been a monster. Bomb payload isn't specified, but I would be surprised if it couldn't carry at least two 250kg bombs or a 500kg bomb, as this plane is quite large in scale. The prototype of this plane was supposedly 80% completed, but cancelled due to the armistice. These blueprints of the plane come from 1944, so it's hard to confirm or deny this claim. A true Italian jet that gets discussed sometimes is either the Re.2007, CA-2008, or something along those lines. The story revolves around Roberto Longhi, a once chief designer of Reggiane. Supposedly in the early 1960s, after Reggiane was no longer in the aircraft business, Longhi described working on a Jumo 004 powered swept-wing aircraft based on the Re.2006 prototype, and this new plane was supposedly 70% completed by 1944 before prototype transfers and lost plans ultimately killed the project. More details of this story can be found in Skybolt's thread in the Secret Projects forum. Ultimately, he is very skeptical of the Re.2007 or CA-2008 even existing, but if the story is true, then it's probably the best fit for an Italian jet fighter for the Italian tech tree. Speaking of the Re.2006, it can also be considered for Italy's top fighter. With a projected top speed of 760 km an hour with the DB603, 3 20mm cannons, two 12.7mm machine guns, and the ability to carry up to one 630kg bomb and a 160kg bomb under each wing, the Re.2006 would be the most powerful prop fighter in the game. We also know the prototype for this plane was for sure almost completed, at one point only missing the DB603 engine, so it would be a very good option. Another fighter with the DB603 could be the Machi C207, one of the final evolution of the Machi prop fighters of World War II. With 4 20mm cannons and a supposed 1,050kg payload limit, meaning it could carry two 500kg bombs, the estimated top speed of only 700 km an hour is alleviated by the sheer firepower of this fighter. Now, with all of those planes being discussed, one of these would become the top fighter of the Italian tech tree, jet or otherwise. The second best of these options becomes the premium BR-5 jet tier fighter. Either way, depending on which parameters of performance, prototype completion, or even project reality is the most important to you, these options vary substantially. Finally, let's talk about pistols and equipment. The two starting pistols for Italy are the Bodeo 1889, a 10.35mm revolver, and the Beretta M1934, which is currently in-game in the German tech tree. Once BR2 equipment is being unlocked, players get access to the Beretta M1923, which is already in-game, and the Glicenti M1910, a standard pistol for Italy in World War I, with some seeing use in World War II. Finally, once BR3 equipment is being unlocked, players can unlock the Brixia Model 20, essentially a long-barreled Glicenti pistol with more damage, and the Soso M1934, the first of Giulio Soso's pistols, featuring an endless magazine belt in the pistol grip containing 19 rounds. A possible event pistol is the Soso M1941, a further development of Soso's M1934 pistol. The belt capacity was increased to 21 rounds, and some of these pistols were given to Italian political leaders, including Il Duce. In terms of machine pistols, I couldn't really find anything definitive. The best option for Italy would likely be a commercial import from Spain, such as an Astra or possibly a Star automatic pistol. For grenades, Italy has access to impact grenades, smoke grenades, incendiary grenades, and explosive packs, but no fragmentation grenades or white phosphorus. The Italians get access to the San Giorgio Genova Sestri 6x30 binoculars as well. For engineer construction, the Fiat Ravelli M1935 is the basic MG nest. while the 12.7mm Breda Safat is the heavy machine gun. At low battle ratings, the anti-tank cannon is the 47mm Canon to 4732, and the PaK 40, designated the 75mm Canon to 7543 Mod 40, is the high battle rating anti-tank gun. For an AA gun, Italy builds the Breda 2065 Mod 35 cannon. And that is my Italian tech tree suggestion for Enlisted. Like the British tree video, this was quite a bit of work, so if you made it to the end of the video, I would really appreciate if you liked this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the bell as well so you don't miss future uploads. We also have a Discord where we like to talk about various historical and gameplay topics, so feel free to join us there as well. I'm also considering making tech tree videos on tech trees that don't even exist in Enlisted yet, such as a French tree, Hungarian tree, Finnish tree, Chinese tree, and so on and so forth. Would you guys watch that? Let me know. Until then, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.